Good morning, everyone. My name is Lisa Mills. I am a training specialist with the Child Care Center Licensing Unit. Thank you to Una for reaching out to us and feeling like we were wanted. So to come and speak with you all on this exciting day that you have planned. So I'm going to hand things to Meg.
Hi, my name is Meg Holmen. I am a supervisor in the Child Care Center Licensing Unit. I have been with DHS Licensing for 15 years now. It seems crazy that it's been that long, but prior to that, I've worked in the field of child care for over 30 years, which dates me a bit. I was really young when I started. Don't we all say that? But anyway, so I'm very happy to be with you all today, and Lisa and I are excited to share the information that we have for you. So with that, I think we'll go ahead and get started.
I, too, have a lengthy experience of working in the early childhood education field. I'm 36, so I have her beat by a couple of years. But we share that with you because we want you to know just about everybody in our division and our unit in particular has worked in pretty much every aspect of the childcare world. So a lot of us have started out in classrooms in various roles in classrooms and then moved up into leadership roles, and we are a very passionate, driven crew at our team, and so we just want kind of let you know who we are at DHS. So I'm going to share a little bit about who we are kind of as a team and where we fit, because a lot of people don't really just understand the structure. But we do come from the Minnesota Department of Human Services, and we are part of the licensing division and the child care unit. So we're the child care center unit. And as you can see up on this slide here, we're over on the little bottom left area of the directly licensed programs throughout the state. And we share this just to kind of educate people, because oftentimes people just don't know. Like our family child care unit, their licensors are delegated out at the county level. So it's a little different structure, but we do stay connected, and this entire organization here on this org chart is very connected. You'll see the new Department of Children, Youth, and Families, DCYF. Some of you may have heard about DCYF, and that is a brand new agency at the state that just started in July, and our licensing unit, as well as family child care, will move away from DHS and transition to DCYF by July of 2025. So we just share that with you because you'll start to notice, we're often referenced as DHS. And so we have to start getting used to calling ourselves DCYF by next July. And we want you to be aware of that as well. Our structure at this point won't change, so we will still do the work that we do, and we will still connect with you in the same manner, so it shouldn't really affect you. However, the goal of the new agency is really to just connect anyone working throughout the various state agencies with a more collaborative effort, so we can communicate better within our structure of state agencies to do more coordinated efforts for all of you and for all of the children and families within Minnesota. I'm going to hand things over to Meg.
Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about the role of DHS licensing. We're responsible for a lot of different areas, and the licensing division, we have a critical role in monitoring for the health and safety of children, and you all know that very well. We license approximately 10,600 licensed programs in Minnesota. That does include family child care centers. So we have a large role, and you all have a very important job when it does come to caring for children and keeping them safe. Things that we're responsible for, obviously are stated up here. As a reminder, the role of licensing is to monitor for minimum standards for licensed centers. We don't monitor for best practices, but many of you most likely all of you strive to meet best practices. But again, our role is to monitor for minimum standards. And again, things that we look into are, of course, child supervision, child and caregiver health, the building safety, making sure that the building is safe for the children, it's kept in good repair, the equipment is kept in good repair. Emergency planning is very important, as you all know, with your risk reduction plans and your emergency preparedness plans. We do plan for, in the event of an emergency, you and your staff know how to react. Cleanliness, of course, we have to make sure that the center is kept clean and sanitary for those little ones, and that's an uphill battle sometimes. Children can be messy. So it's a big role to keep them clean and keep your centers clean. So we appreciate the efforts and work towards that. Ongoing caregiver and staff training, for example, child licensing and development, CPR, first aid, orientation. I could go on and on. As you know, there are a lot of different areas that require training, and annual training, orientation training. So we appreciate, again, your dedication to ensuring that your staff are trained so they can best care for the littles of our state. We also are responsible for overseeing criminal background study checks for all caregivers and staff. Next slide. So licensing compliance. We're going to talk a little bit about legislation when it comes to licensing compliant. Again, the legislative process creates resources to ensure programs comply with minimum standards. Anyone can initiate, thank you. That was the word I was looking for. Propose legislation, and no matter what it is, it doesn't have to be the legislators themselves. It can truly be you. You could all, come together and decide there's an area that you'd like to propose something into legislation. You're certainly able to do that, and that's the really neat thing about our state is that truly everyone's voice matters and everyone's voice counts. So legislative process creates measures to ensure programs comply with minimum standards and the statutes and the rules. Some come from the state's need to meet federal requirements. For example, the Child Care Development Block Grant. A lot of legislation was enacted regarding the Child Development Block Grant, as you're all aware. There are agency proposals. Sometimes DHS will identify an area that we believe legislation could be beneficial. And then public and private support or groups such as yourselves, like I just said. So licensing standards, again, are minimum standards. Understanding and using licensing standards as part of the daily conversations with staff. It really supports the mindset and environment in the shared learning and problem solving. So, it is important to make sure that licensing is a part of your everyday thoughts, conversations, and trainings with your staff. It's really important that they're aware of the rules and the statutes that apply to the licensed child care program. So making it a part of your everyday conversation, making it a part of your staff meetings and trainings is very important. And it just becomes second nature to your staff. As hearing licensing, this is a licensing requirement. Licensing can sometimes have that bad rap, and we're really trying hard to work against that and to help everyone understand truly we want a collaborative relationship. We are here to assist you, we are here to help you, and we are here to provide guidance. I'm going to be very honest. When I was a director, I I was afraid to call licensing. I didn't want to call my licensor because if I called my licensor, they're going to remember that I'm there and then they're going to show up. It is not true. Really, truly, it is not true. Our licensors want to be able to, what happened? Our licensor, oh, it's back. Our licensors want to be able to provide that guidance, those answers. They really care for your programs and want to build those collaborative relationships. So please don't be afraid to reach out to us. Don't be afraid to call us. We are here, again, to be a support to you. If we come to your program and we learn something isn't right, maybe we have to issue a citation, we view that as a learning opportunity. It's not a, we gotcha. Never, ever is that a mindset of ours. It's a learning opportunity. You might not be doing it in the correct way. We're going to help you understand the reason behind the rule or the statute and how you can become compliant with that area. So again, we really want to build that collaborative relationship with you all. So I think with that, I'm going to pass it back to Lisa, and I will chat with you in a little bit. Thank you.
All right. So I'm going to piggyback a little bit before I move on with what Meg said. I remember I've been in many different programs through my career, and the programs that really did, as Meg suggested, it's really a tip. We're often asked, what are some tips for staying compliant? And it really is when you incorporate, what those licensing, requirements are within that daily conversation in your classroom. And we all know, right now, childcare programs throughout the state have a very varied experience within their staff. You have staff members that are very, very new to this industry, and then you might have, staff that have been along for a long, long time. And if you do, good for you, because that means you're doing something right. And incorporating licensing compliance into that daily narrative really does help with staff retention. It gives your staff a say. It gives them knowledge to do the jobs that they're out there to do, and they feel like they're included. So including your staff in that conversation and gaining their perspective will sometimes, allow you to see the differences in how you can meet those licensing standards. So just wanted to share that as well. And then two, when Una reached out, she asked us to share a little bit about compliance and those little tips. And then we also talked about, what's going on in our industry right now. And so we're going to move to some changes that are happening to support childcare, because it is actually a really exciting time right now. During the 2021 legislative session, there were changes that were initiated or created through the legislature, and money was funded that made changes, some broad spectrum changes that really affected us doing things differently and seeing things in a new way. So for the last couple years, we've been working really hard as a licensing division, along with many partners in other state agencies and other teams that have been created to kind of like support you in different ways. And so we feel we're really at a good point in our history as early educators to have the kind of support that we do. There was a lot of money to help with the childcare systems transformation project, and I know you might have some questions about that. We will stick around during lunch for a little while just to answer questions if you have any specific ones. But the systems transformation project, or the provider hub, is moving along. We're still in transition phase, and we meet daily pretty much with the teams that are developing and creating the provider hub. And so do know that there are a lot of efforts. And we're also bringing back feedback, because it's been nice now the last 9 months that our licensors have been working with our licensed programs to be able to try to work through navigating the provider hub. And so we're bringing a lot of that feedback we receive from license holders. So again, great opportunity to connect with your licensor and share with them about your experience, or if you have any questions. The Child Care Regulation Modernization Project is another big project that is happening throughout our state, and you may have heard about that. Just last week, I think, an email was sent out to AAs at licensed programs to share with people that We have heard through a lot of feedback that we take very seriously at the department, that people want more time to have input in the regulation modernization project. And so the team that is in charge of that has heard that. They are working to take the feedback they've received and kind of move things along, and there will be more opportunities coming, and I'm going to share a little more about that in a minute. Capacity building initiative and industry support. There are many grants out there that many programs are eligible to receive. So I'm going to share with you in a bit where you can find out more about that. Empower to Educate is also a state system that really is there, and it's a free service to help programs support their staff with professional development. And again, we all know that it's important to really bring in good staff and then support them so that you can retain them. And this is a great resource that's available to many of you leaders to kind of help you do that and get your staff connected with the industry so that they are really excited to stay. And then I just want to share a little bit too. There's during that legislative session, there was an initiative that came out that said we need a one-stop shop for building capacity and supporting programs. And so you may not be aware, but for the last 2 years, Childcare Wayfinder has been in place. And again, it's a free service. I'm going to share a little more about it in a sec. That is there to support programs and with a navigator who can connect you and your program wherever you are throughout the state with regional resources that are available to you. So I'm going to share more about where you can find that. So I'm going to kind of go through a little bit about each one of these different initiatives that came forth and that we are working really closely with our public to get underway. But the Provider Hub. So what is that Provider Hub? Provider Hub is an online site for licensed childcare. The hub allows providers to have 24 self-service access to licensed information. I'm reading this, as you can tell. And a centralized location to complete applications, and eventually the CCAP provider registration process. So if you have any children or families, I'm not sure if in your programs you have any that are connected with the CCAP, the Child Care Assistance Program. Eventually that registration process is going to be streamlined into the Provider Hub. The hub replaces paper-based processes and creates a more efficient and user-friendly experience. That is one of the goals of the Provider Hub. And we are working again with the team that is developing it to make it more streamlined and easier to use. So the Provider Hub allows licensed programs to, again, apply and manage key information and communication related to your license. The Provider Hub connects you to resources and funding opportunities to help you grow and sustain your childcare business. And the Provider Hub offers as-needed features such as reporting incidents, paying fees, and complying with funding requirements. It also allows for a much easier way for licensed programs to communicate directly with their assigned licensor. And so that is the intent. And again, we know sometimes there have been some challenges in the last 9 months, but there are many things happening that behind the scenes that should make things more easily accessible for you. And really this all stems from many, many years of hearing from the public that license holders wanted things to be easier and be more modern. So we're moving in a more modern way to do things electronically and more efficiently. And so this, again, came out of that legislative session based on feedback from the public. And we want you to be aware of, there are some provider resources that are there. So if you have issues or need help when you are using the Provider Hub, there is a very supportive product support hotline available that will help you, navigate through the system. And once you are into the Provider Hub, there's also a support toolbar that has many, many, many resources called knowledge articles, or what That's what we call them. Yes, so there are articles that are there to really help you walk through various processes that you need to do. So look for that. If you can't find what you need, definitely reach out to that hotline and or to your licensor. Again, the modernization project, why are we revising childcare licensing standards? This project is initiated because, again, for many, many years, we, as a licensing division, as well as all of our license holders, have known that the rules are outdated. And so this is an opportunity. The legislature, said this needs to happen. So there was a team put in place to work on the modernization project. They have worked along with NARA, which is the National Association of Regulators, or National... Thank you. I should know the acronyms, but we call it NARA. But anyways, so, we are not sitting in a room just making up rules. We are really pulling data-driven information nationally from, NARA has amazing resources that they can pull and great data from other states. And then, we are listening to all of our license holders and the public. And, there's an opportunity now for more people to really, as things move forward, to continue to share what they feel about the regulation modernization project and what is being proposed or what will eventually be proposed. And so, parent involvement would be really great. I know the team has tried to get parents involved in sharing feedback on what they'd like to see. And it's just a harder audience to draw in because we're not as connected firsthand with that. But many of you are. So if you think that their perspectives should be heard, and when you hear of ways to connect, make sure you're sharing that with the families that you work with. The next steps here for that project, again, there was a public draft that came out in April. And then again, there was public feedback that the team went out to hear from people at many different public engagement opportunities throughout the state from April through July, or in mid-July. Now, that team that's working on that project will summarize and share a recap as we move into the fall of what they have heard and kind of the trends we've heard throughout the state that we want to, make certain are included in the final release. And then there will be a new revised draft, both for childcare centers and family childcare, for public comment later this year. And then for that 2025 legislative session, instead of doing a proposal of the actual, rules that we're trying to project, they will do instead a report to the legislature describing the progress of the broader regulatory modernization project. All right. Other things that are happening, that Great Start Compensation Support Payment Program is one of many grants out there. This one is a really big one that people usually have questions about. So we wanted you to know where to seek more information. So again, us as a child care center licensing unit, we are not directly part of or those that are designing or monitoring the Great Start Compensation Support Payment Program, but our partners are, and so we wanted you to know where to go when you have specific questions. And so there's some great resources there. There are some new tools and an FAQ resource that's just been recently launched. And so if you want to write down some of those links, you can definitely try to do that or take a snapshot or whatever so that you know where to search for the Great Start Compensation Support Payment Program if you have questions. If you have specific questions, we might be able to try to help answer you, but oftentimes, again, it's best for you to hear from the experts that know the details better. Empower to educate. Again, as you're bringing on staff and making certain that they are, wanting to stay, and a great way to do that, again, as I've mentioned, is to really empower them. And education will only benefit them as well as all of you if they have that. And so there's this Empower to Educate is a free service where there are professional development mentors and advisors that are available to help staff. So if you bring on new staff and they're interested in learning about some training or want to further their education in the field, connecting them or even letting them know about this Empower to Educate opportunity is great, because there are some financial benefits to participating as well, and trainings that can be free or paid for. And so connecting them with that resource might be a real benefit to them as well as to you. There's also a free statewide job board that you may not be aware of. In the past, there was a cost to it, but the last couple years now, that job board is free. And so if you're seeking staff or educators for your programs, it is via Achieve. So Achieve is part of Develop. And so if you are connected with Develop, and that's the Minnesota Professional Development System, and that job board is free. So we wanted to make sure you were aware of that. There are many, many other ways to empower your staff. And so again, connecting with those resources will give you a much broader aspect of what's available than what I'm providing today. And then Childcare Wayfinder, as I mentioned earlier, that is a one-stop navigation system. It's a network throughout Minnesota that is really developed to help capacity building for families and parents through building capacity of childcare programs. And so it's the intent is to really help like an applicant get a program started, and then those navigators are there to not only do that, but to support programs as they grow. And so if you have questions, or if you're like, oh my gosh, in my program, I might need some help with an issue in a classroom or whatever, those navigators know the resources that are available, and there are many. And so the navigators are really that resource hub that can connect you in your programs to many different things that are out there that can support your program in sustaining as well as growing. So Childcare Wayfinder, you can search Childcare Wayfinder and it pops up right away. And that it's actually housed under the Childcare Aware. So that's another avenue to search them. And if you do go to Childcare Aware, they also have a section on their website too for other grants that are available. So just do some perusing and check out all of the available opportunities that are out there to support the childcare industry. And then coming from us, our childcare licensing unit, our childcare center licensing unit has some very helpful websites. I'm hoping you're all familiar with this, and this is, old hat. But if not, again, snapshot of this here, and I can maybe see if I can send this out to Una so that she can share these resources with each of you in some form. But our licensing help for childcare providers is a DHS-wide. It's for all childcare, so it's a more general page that gives you information about trends or some resources, some training opportunities are on that childcare provider, licensing help for childcare provider page. There's a licensed childcare center page, which is what we call our page, and for our licensing unit. And on there, it is part of my job to make sure that web page is up to date. And years ago, when I was a director in a program, it wasn't. But now we have the capacity in the role that I'm in as a training specialist to make sure that is being kept up to date. So go to that page, go to it often, because we are putting up a variety of information there, news and updates, opportunities for all of you. And then apply. We've also created an applying for a childcare center license page to support people through the application process. And then there's a more general DHS childcare and early education news reports and work groups. So staying abreast of what's going on can be very helpful. It's not letting me advance. There we go. As a childcare center licensing unit, we do also have some additional resources. A lot of these are found on our childcare licensing webpage and the application page. There's also, you have, as Meg mentioned earlier, your licensor that's assigned to your program really knows the programs that they work with. They have an intimate inside view of, your facility, your organization, and when they come out, they are usually trying to connect with you to hear what you have to say. And so they also are yet generally, when a program has a specific question related to their center, the best person to answer those questions is your licensor. However, aside from that, we also do have a licensor on call who is available Monday through Friday from 8 to 4:30. And that licensor on call, our licensors take turns. And so they're a licensor that is out there. You could get your own on their turn or another one out there. And they are very devoted to getting the answers to our license holders or to anybody who calls in with questions about child care center licensing. On our webpage, we have now just recently connected, put a resource there or a connection with links to actual statute and rule. We've always, on any of our documents, we've always linked whatever rule. We try to do that purposefully, any rule that applies to something that we send out. But we do have a section now on our webpage that can direct you to the the Office of the Reviser of Statute, where you can directly go and search any rule or statute that you want to read. The news and updates section on our webpage does have a variety of updates. Anytime we propose a new resource or a form that might be helpful to our license holders, we will post it there. I just recently had the Department of Health reached out, and they just put together kind of a guide for schools and childcare programs on like air quality. And we thought many of you deal with that on a daily basis. Like, is this safe, or what do I need to know? And so while, again, it does not come and is not a licensing requirement, we know that you often will come to our page to find that information. And so we have connected with our partners at MDH and have shared that. And it's on right there currently now on the news and updates. And then we've also been really working as a training team for the Child Care Center Licensing Unit. One of our goals this year is to provide more recordings of our trainings and webinars. And so it's a much bigger process than you might think, but we're really getting underway, and we've got a few of them up there. We've got a recording available for our behavior guidance training that we just recently did, and then we also have our ICCPP training that I did earlier in July. That is available now as a recording. And then we do a connection webinar twice a year, in June as well as in December. So watch for those. And the June recording is available too. And again, it gives you opportunities to hear what's going on. And so the best way to comply and be alert and be supportive to the families you work with is to have that information. There are links to the Provider Hub and Regulation Modernization Program, and then we always do, too, after a legislative session, an implementation plan, and we send those out, but we also have them housed on our webpage. And I'm gonna move on here. You guys can read that. We've got great forms and resources available, but I want to give Meg her time. And so, too, just to kind of close off before I hand over to Meg, who's going to talk about updates and legislation, our contact information. It has recently changed. So our phone number is 651-431-6015, and that is where you would reach that licensor on call. And they can also connect you to anyone within our unit if need be. So, and they also do answer the emails, and they try to get those answered. So if you call in with a question, they try to clean up their inbox before they pass it to the next licensor on call the next day. So really, truly, the goal is to answer questions on the day that they are received, unless we need to seek further information. And if there's a delay, it might be for that reason. All right, I'm gonna hand things over to Meg.
Thank you. Okay, so we are now going to spend some time talking about, we talked about legislation a little bit earlier, and now we're going to talk about what legislation was passed this last session and directly affects you. So that's what we're going to cover now. So the risk reduction plan, things that we're going to discuss, the legislation that was passed, there's the risk reduction plan, the weighted risk system, reusable water bottles or cups, contraindicated physical restraints, and again, Department of Children, Youth, and Families, which Lisa has already touched on. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. Okay, so regarding the risk reduction plan, this is related to supervision. And last session, there was proposed legislation regarding the supervision of preschool children and their ability to use a bathroom independently. So this past session, we are tying it into the risk reduction plan. So again, the definition of supervision of childcare was amended, and this is to allow for preschool children, like I just said, to be able to use a bathroom independently with the door closed. It needs to be a bathroom that is within the classroom, that is a single-use bathroom, and preschool children are allowed to use that bathroom independently. The door can be closed. What's required is the teacher needs to know where that child is, be able to hear the child, and check on the child periodically while they're using that restroom. We've received some questions regarding, bathrooms. I would recommend, if you have questions as to whether or not your program, the physical layout of your program would be appropriate for this flexibility of supervision for preschool children, reach out to your licensor. Believe it or not, your licensors can pull up your center in their mind. They do know your centers. They know the layout. They remember them. It's kind of a skill that we all have. So reach out to your licensor if you have questions. Some of the questions that we've received is, we have a Jack and Jill bathroom, meaning a bathroom that's in between two classrooms, has a door on each side. Would that be a bathroom that would be appropriate? That would not be a bathroom that's appropriate. And the reason for that is there's a secondary exit. So if the door is closed, there's no way the staff person would be able to see or hear if the child kind of walked out into the other classroom. So, but again, if you have questions, never hesitate to reach out to your licensor. And if there's anything that you guys take away today, please, please, please let it be. Reach out to your licensors, ask those questions. Any questions you have, there are no silly questions, there are no dumb questions. They're all, if you have a question, others have the questions as well. So we want to make sure that we're here for you and that we're able to provide any answers to the questions that you have. So the corresponding language has now been added to the policies and procedures in the risk reduction plan. So again, if you have a bathroom and you have the ability to utilize this flexibility for supervision of preschool children, you want to make sure that you're adding that to your risk reduction plan. So by adding it to the risk reduction plan, make sure it's consistent with the changes, the definition of the supervision that we just discussed. And this was effective August 1st of this year. So tying that risk reduction piece into it. Next, we're going to talk about the weighted risk system. So language was added to statute to adopt the weighted risk system. There hasn't been any additional information released regarding the weighted risk system. That's really hard to say. Weighted risk system is a tiered licensing enforcement framework where the weight is assigned to each regulation representing the potential impact of children in care if the regulation is violated. So the weighted risk system will replace the need for the current fix-it ticket, but there's also going to be some additional flexibility because each I don't want to say citation, each rule or it'll be statute once we move in, it'll be rule until the statute is released in 2026. But because the weighted risk system will be assigned to each topic, it will allow for additional flexibility and, for the licensors that are conducting their work. The weighted risk system will be implemented after the provider hub is live for all child care types. Obviously, as you're aware, the hub went live November of this past year, 2023. It has not been launched for family child care programs yet. It has been launched for certified, so the weighted risk system will not be in effect or moving forward until family child care has been launched in the hub. So you'll be hearing more about it. Keep your ears open. More information will be coming regarding the weighted risk system. Reusable water bottles or cups. There's been a lot of talk about water bottles. Who knew we would talk so much about water bottles? So as you're aware, previous legislation stated water bottles needed to be kept on site and cleaned and sanitized at the program. Now this allows for parents and guardians to bring those water bottles or cups home and clean and sanitize them and bring them back. Centers must update their policies in order to, if this is something that you're allowing for, just make sure it's written in your policies and procedures. And again, this went into effect July 1st of 2024. So again, who knew we'd talk so much about water bottles? So contraindicated physical restraint. I am going to just honestly read this slide because quite honestly, I want to make sure that I have the old language and the new language accurate. I don't want to try to do it from memory. So the 2023 language stated prior to using restraints on persons, the license or certification holder must assess and document the determination of any medical or psychological condition that restraints are contraindicated for and the types of restraints that will not be used on the person based on this determination. So again, contraindicated means something that cannot be used, will not be used. So the new language states prior to using restraints on a person with a known medical or psychological condition that restraints are contraindicated for, so again, not able to be used, the center or certification holder must document the contraindication and the type of restraints that will not be used on the person based on this determination. So the new language clarifies that the assessment isn't needed. You only need to document if there is a known medical or psychological condition. And again, this should be included within the child's individual child care program plan. This was effective when it was enacted, the day after it was enacted, it went into effect May 19th of 2024. Department of Children, Youth, and Families. So Lisa spoke to you a little bit about that before. So this is not going to be new information for you, but I'm just going to reiterate again, Department of Children, Youth, and Families, the agency began in July, just this past July of 2024. Child Care Center licensing will become part of DCYF in July of 2025, and we're really excited for that. We really are. Not a lot is going to change for you, but it's nice that many different areas that work with children will be housed in the same agency now. So that's going to be really fantastic. We're excited about that. So in anticipation of the move to the new department, legislator has passed conforming change to many parts of the statute, including child care center licensing. The changes are technical, but not substantive. For example, moving the existing language to the new licensing chapter for programs that will be licensed by DCYF, as well as replacing Department of Human Services, wherever that's sprinkled throughout, with the Department of Children, Youth, and Families. Changes aren't effective, again, like I just said, until July of 2025. So that's when we'll be moving over, and we learn more and more information as time progresses. There's a lot of information that's been released to us and will continue to be released to us in anticipation of that move. So this is just a reminder that Minnesota requirements for child care center licensing, again, these are all the areas that do affect you, which is 245A, which is the Human Services Act, Licensing Act. Rule 3, which again, we're in the process of revising, and that will, once it is enacted, it will be a statute rather than the rule, so that'll be a little bit different. But we're working towards that. Also, 245C, which is the background studies law, and Minnesota statutes 260E, which is the Maltreatment of Minors Act. So these are all areas that you're responsible for knowing that affect your program directly. It seems like a lot. It is a lot. We do know that. But again, reach out to your licensor with any questions, or reach out to the licensor on call. I know I mentioned earlier that I was a little bit afraid to call my licensor because I didn't want to remind them that I existed. But so if you're more comfortable reaching out to the licensor on call that Lisa was talking about a little bit earlier, feel free to do that. But I can't reiterate enough, your licensor does want to hear from you. They want to be able to be a support to you and to answer questions that you have. So don't ever, ever hesitate to reach out to them. So those are the areas that you are responsible for, not memorizing by any means. I still pick up my, I still pick up my rule book and my my statute book and reference it, because quite honestly, little words like and or can mean a whole different interpretation of the rule or the statute. And again, that's why we really want to hear from you. If you are confused, if you just have questions, if you're just not sure, please, please, please reach out to us, because 100% we are there for you. Oh, yep, the reviser's site right there. I always say, and when I was a licenser, I would have my providers save it in their favorites. Have that reviser's website in your browser as a favorite and reference it, because you can pull up all of those different statutes and the rule that I just read off, and that information is there for you at a fingertip. And it's really user-friendly. You can truly pull it up and then search a word, and it'll flip through whatever you're looking for. So it is there, and user-friendly. So save it as a favorite. I highly recommend that. So with that is the information that we have for you today, but we did want to allow time for questions if you have them. If you're comfortable asking questions in a group setting, please feel free. I'm not sure how we're doing on time. Are we okay on time, or a couple minutes? We can just be over. Exactly. So it sounds like we have a couple minutes, but again, Lisa and I will hang back, and feel free to come up and ask us any questions. But are there any questions that anyone has currently? Yes. I'm just going to repeat the question, and if I don't have it exactly right, let me know. So it's regarding background studies that are expiring, the 5 years, the enhanced studies. We've come upon that 5 years, and those are expiring. And it sounds like there are difficulties in being able to just kind of shift that information over. I do believe the studies need to be rerun. They do need to be rerun. I would recommend reaching out to the background studies division. Lisa's going to pull up a slide real quick. Oh. We will get Una the information. You have it. Okay. Yeah, they're the experts, and I don't want to provide any misinformation. I would hate to do that, but I would recommend, if you are having problems with the background studies, reach out to the background study division. If you're having a difficult time getting a response, or reach out to your licensor and they can assist you. Or, I'll provide my contact information. You can certainly feel free to reach out to me. I work with the background studies division consistently. I have weekly meetings with them, so feel free to reach out to me if you're having those issues, and I can certainly assist in any way possible. Any other questions? Not seeing any. I would really like to thank you all for having us today. It was a pleasure. Hopefully we were able to provide some information that is new to you or confirming to you or however you received it. If there are, again, like Lisa said, we're going to hang back a little bit, but if you think of anything, please ask Una and we will, she can get the questions to us because we're dedicated to getting you the answers. Yes, and our contact information is right up there. Obviously, my email is Megan, but I go by Meg. So, thank you so much. We really appreciate the time.